Hello students, today we'll start with our presentation on the works of Mies van der Rohe, and I'll tell you a little story with regard to Mies van der Rohe. When I was a student of architecture, and some of you may not be aware of it, I'm teaching here in IIT Roorkee and I was also a student at IIT Roorkee. That means I came to study here in my undergraduate program in 1986, then did my postgrad, my PhD all from here and began teaching. So while I was an undergrad student, couple of my batchmates were together planning to do a seminar on the steel architecture of Mies van der Rohe. That was, I believe, in my second year, and that was my second or third year, and that was my first interaction with the works of Mies van der Rohe. And since then, I've always been fascinated by his works. Normally, I try not to make statements that would create a bias in my students towards an architect or towards a building. I try to keep my opinions neutral so that they frame their own opinions. But I would like to say this, that of all the architects of the modern times I've liked the most, I would say it would be Mies van der Rohe. And there are reasons for it. And we'll look at those reasons. What impressed me about Mies van der Rohe's work and what you might have heard of is his very famous dictum, less is more. Mies van der Rohe was a German-American architect and a pioneer of the modernist movement. He was one of the greats of the 20th century. Now again, going back to my undergraduate years, we had known at that time that there are four great masters of modern architecture. And the four greats are Frank Lloyd Wright, who was a generation older than the remaining three. Then there is Le Corbusier, Mies van der Rohe and Walter Gropius. There were other great architects around them, surrounding them, doing probably equally great work. There was Eero Saarinen, Alvar Aalto, Richard Neutra, Richard Meyer, Bruce Goff, Marshall Breuer. There were innumerable number of other architects who were doing excellent work, Philip Johnson. But why were these four considered to be the greats amongst even those amazing architects? Because what these four architects gave us were some of the fundamental principles and concepts that have governed modern architecture in the 20th and leading on into the 21st century. I can say with a quite degree of assurance that even in the 21st century, we have not come up with the kind of revolutionary ideas these architects had come up with in the turn of the 20th century. The kind of change they brought about, such monumental change, has not been provided even into the 21st century. Of course, there are amazing works being done by architects like Hadid and Calatrava and many others. And of course, there are many new theories that have come up. I would say the greatest contribution of our times has more to do with technology. It is technology that is creating the wonders of architecture today. Because of the kind of CAD/CAM integration that we have today, we are able to create buildings. Architects can imagine buildings and are able to create them. So we have something like a Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao, or we have the Heydar Aliyev Center, or we have the CCTV tower in Beijing by Rem Koolhaas, because of these amazing technical possibilities that are there today. But when it comes to conceptual architectural understanding, of course based on change in technology, had RCC not been developed, would Corbusier have come up with the domino system? Had steel not begun to be used in Chicago in tall buildings, would Mies have been able to consider it? Had Chicago not provided the curtain wall in glass, not totally but partially, would these architects have considered curtain wall in glass in the years to come? We leave that question. We cannot answer that question. We can simply say that if those technologies had not come, these architectural changes wouldn't have happened. But again, fundamentally, to take those technologies and turn them into the kind of spaces and concepts these architects did was amazing. See, the thing is, you look at their work in the past tense. You look at these works and you have seen much more fascinating abstract forms today. And you look back and say, oh, so what's so great about this? It's try to understand that when they made these buildings, none of these, any examples of similar type of buildings just did not exist. There were no kind of buildings precisely like this. There were ideas, one here or one there, which these great masters picked up and put them all together and then evolved their own ideas out of that. But these kind of buildings were not there. They are there today, and we have learned a lot of lessons, and we have made many more new buildings out of them. And I will be showing you in this presentation of Mies van der Rohe, when we come down to the third or the fourth part, many buildings I will show you of today's time which are in direct correlation with these. So coming back to Mies van der Rohe and his philosophy, minimalism, less is more. Now minimalism is also a way of life. It simply means that you do more with less, that you live a very simple life where you are able to get by with very few things. But Mies van der Rohe brought that into architecture and said that we can do more with less. Again, I will point out here, it did not mean that even the cost was less. That is something ironical about Mies's work. Though he said less is more, that is in terms of the simplicity of his architecture, the way he positioned everything. But the materials he used were very, very expensive. Stones that he used, travertine, marble, were very expensive materials, chrome plated columns. So though his work is minimal in terms of the clarity or the simplicity, materials themselves were not cheap. He was a pioneer of two types of buildings, the long span and the tall span. The long span and the tall span. Both types of buildings, he was the pioneer in the 20th century. In the corporate world, in the institutional world, we say that Corbusier made massive contributions in urban living, in giving us principles of urban life, urban planning, ideas like that. But somebody who gave us very fundamental tall building, for example, which got replicated all over the world as the glass and steel cuboid, was Mies van der Rohe. Large open spaces for display, for gallery, museums, etc., was Mies van der Rohe, and many followed him in the 20th and the 21st century. And Ludwig Hilberseimer says that Mies van der Rohe's greatest achievement is the creation of steel architecture. He has arrived at structural clarity and has found a harmony in his works. The materials which be the elements of Miesian architecture is steel, glass, stone of various types, water, and even bricks. And he worked with these materials and repeatedly used them. These are some of Mies's iconic buildings that we will be looking at. The Barcelona Pavilion in Spain, 1929. The Villa Tugendhat in the Czech Republic, 1930. Crown Hall, he designed about 20 buildings in the campus of IIT Illinois. This is one of them, the Crown Hall in IIT Illinois, Chicago, 1956. Then Farnsworth House in the US in 1951. The New National Gallery in Germany in 1968. And the Seagram building, which became the very epitome of what a tall skyscraper, glass and steel skyscraper should be, the Seagram in New York in 1958. Now Mies said when modern building technology is truthfully expressed, architecture becomes inspiring. When technology used in buildings is truthfully expressed, the architecture becomes inspiring. And again such buildings are created where the building technology is expressed very transparently, and they have given us inspiring buildings like the Madrid Barajas Airport by Richard Rogers, or this swimming pool by Zaha Hadid in London. This very complex and abstract form, the Foundation Louis Vuitton in Paris by Frank Gehry, this hall in London by Norman Foster, this station by Santiago Calatrava, and this museum, the Academy Museum in the USA by Renzo Piano, are some of the few examples of the many hundreds of examples where technology is playing a great role and is really bringing us inspiring architecture, or in evolving the forms of the skyscrapers, contemporary tall span buildings. This is actually a result of what Mies gave us, this Lakeshore Drive apartments before that, and then the Seagram building. Now, when we talk of a new architecture in the modern times, what have these architects given us? Can we in one word bring down what they have given us? So this is what has been said. The Wright gave us propositions. I gave you a whole list of propositions how to design a house. I listed that out to you in my presentation. Corbusier gave us points, the 5 points of a new architecture. Mies has given us elements, steel, glass, stone, and how to put them together with so much clarity and harmony and simplicity. Gropius gave us systems. Gropius's greatest contribution was not so much in architecture as in architectural education. He in Bauhaus not only gave us a building which spoke to us about functionalism, and we look at that, but also he gave us in that building an education system which is very different from the previous École de Beaux-Arts and other systems of architectural education. He brought in art, craft and technology under one roof, and he said this is the way in industrial age architecture ought to be studied. That had been the biggest problem since the Industrial Revolution. Architects, as I have discussed with you earlier, were not really able to reconcile the emerging technologies and the building typologies needed with the architecture that they had learnt. They had grown up learning neoclassical forms, neoclassical architecture, etc. And suddenly there was a technology that they simply gave them a lot of opportunity, lot of building typology with no answers how to do them. And because there was this disconnect between these industrial technologies and architecture, for a long time they were not able to bring out the kind of architecture that would really be inspiring. Some of the buildings built were great, but that big change couldn't come. And that big change came here in the early 20th century, and Bauhaus established that change in education, that architecture will be taught along with technology and craft and art. That is how architecture would be taught. Art and technology would come and together, and thus the concept of functionalism and Gropius's contribution to architecture is more in education. He gave us systems, not only the system in the way he designed the building, which we will talk about later, but the system of architectural education. Now this slide actually gives us the 4 white houses of the time by these 4 greats. The Tugendhat by Mies van der Rohe, the Gropius house by Walter Gropius in 1938, 1936 Falling Water, and Villa Savoy by Corbusier in 1931, all of them in the 1930s, at least 3 of them having this white planar geometry, unornamented facades, all of them, extensive use of glass, transparent between inside and outside, all of them. So they are all following the same modernist ideology. Mies van der Rohe was born in Aachen in Germany in 1886. That makes him about 15 years younger than Frank Lloyd Wright. And then he joined his father in training, who was a stonemason. He worked in his father's or his family's stone carving business, and at the age of 19 he joined the office of Bruno Paul in Berlin, who was an Art Nouveau architect and furniture designer. So Mies van der Rohe did not have a formal education in architecture. Bruno Paul, these are the 2 buildings that he designed, and by this time the change had already started coming. You find these buildings do not reflect Art Nouveau, but a new rationality that was coming and moving towards modernism. His first project was this house called the Ryle House, and for the philosopher Eloy Ryle. Then he started to work in the office or the studio of Peter Behrens from 1908 to 12, and then had his own office in Berlin in 1912 and married in 1913. He was inspired by Dutch architecture, 17th century interiors, crystal clear with precisely framed walls and openings. This had an inner affinity with Mies's own balancing of plane surfaces. There was something inherent in Mies van der Rohe towards making buildings which was simple and clear. And he found that kind of clarity in Dutch architecture and was inspired by it. He was inspired in his father's workshop. The correct placement of brick upon brick and stone upon stone taught him that, or rather gave him, a fanatic attitude with pure form. a great care in the use of building materials, and repeatedly in his projects we find whatever material he worked in, worked it with great precision. We will discuss that. His inspiration was Peter Behrens, in whose office he worked from 08 to 12. 1909, the building Turbinen Fabrik came up, which was designed by Peter Behrens, and it showed Mies the strength of expression that was possible in iron and glass, and later on he would continue that in glass and steel. It also showed him careful handling of new materials, particularly we see that in his later works. His inspiration was also Frank Lloyd Wright. Though he never was a real disciple of Wright, he was not even a student of Wright until Lyceum, but he was deeply influenced by Wright's work. Wright's organic architecture, his connecting his buildings with nature, his low-lying forms, his desire to extend the horizontal towards the horizon. So what I have done is I have put together several plans, and you can look at them later also. There is falling water, and I am comparing or putting it together with the Tugendhat house. Then there are these other houses of Frank Lloyd Wright, and I am putting that along with the Barcelona Pavilion and the Farnsworth house. That open floor planning, open flowing interiors, we find that same working in Mies's work. Only thing is that there is a lot more simplicity, a minimalism so to speak, in the works of Mies. Now, after World War I, Germany had been defeated and had undergone a time of great economic deprivation. There arose a movement called Expressionism, primarily because they were not able to build anything. All they could do was express themselves through their drawings, and because they were not able to build and because they were just expressing themselves, they went into these mystical, emotional fantasies and extremes in their artwork and architectural drawing. Now, Art Nouveau also had Gaudi's Expressionism, which was a biomorphic and osteomorphic fantasy, but the German movement was about mysticism, about emotional extremes in art, and following World War I's economic deprivation. Almost nothing was built. It was a world of imagination and fantasy. They imagined crystalline, prismatic forms where light is filtering through, and two examples come up in front of us of Mies van der Rohe himself. Now, we had also studied the architecture of Carl Friedrich Schinkel along with FLW. After World War I, he began studying the skyscraper, and between 1919 and 21, he designed two glass-walled skyscrapers under Expressionism. They were prismatic, they were star-shaped massing, they were all in glass, allowing light to filter through and through. They were like crystals, and this foreshadowed his glass-faced or glass-walled skyscrapers that he was going to build later in life. These two innovative steel frame towers, one was the Friedrichstrasse Skyscraper he designed in 1921, this one that you see here, and the other one is the Glass Skyscraper Project, also unbuilt in 1922, and there is a building that bears similarity, not built by Mies but built by George Chiporet and John Heinrich, called the Lake Point Tower condominium in Chicago. These skyscrapers of Mies van der Rohe by himself were never built, but they received critical praise and foreshadowed his skyscraper designs. Now, these are some of the buildings that were actually built in the German Expressionist movement, and you can see some of them are very fantasy buildings, like this one, the Einstein Tower in Potsdam by Erich Mendelssohn, or this glass pavilion by Bruno. And then there were more regular kind of buildings, if I can use that word here, but again a little somewhat of a fantasy, in the Great Theatre by Hans Polzig, and then this post office by L. Newman. So, Expressionist movement did result in some buildings, and there was a certain kind of fantasy structure or form in some of them. Now, here is a comparison which is more of a visual comparison. I am just showing the visual comparison, but interestingly it also becomes a plan comparison. Three houses. The first one is the Ryle house. I told you was the first project of Mies van der Rohe in 1907. Another project was the Kent House in Tuxedo Park in New York by an architect called Bruce Price, 1885 to 86, and around the same time, 1893, F.L. Wright did his own house in Oak Park in Illinois. Now, all these three houses in form bear similarity, but the more interesting part is that how open floor planning had already started evolving. I believe that when Frank Lloyd Wright came up with his open floor plan, was he influenced by Kent's own earlier open plan house in Tuxedo Park, this one, where the spaces flow into each other, and it reminds me so much about the Ward Villett's house later. And this is Wright's own house. We didn't see the same spatial clarity here. There's a lot of mix up, but we do find large spaces within the house which are very open and flowing. And then there is the plan of Mies van der Rohe, where he has a space that is open, but still there is certain boxiness in the house. Now these are important points, because what we learn when we see, say for example, okay, let's take this example. Now when architects begin, they also begin by building the architecture that they see around them, but when it comes to a master architect like these people, there is a spark of change that they bring in those projects. Instinctively they keep adding something, or they come up with a new idea that takes the old idea forward and transforms it. I hope you understand. So here we have these houses. When we look at the Ryle house, for example, or when we look at the Villa Schwab, which I have told you earlier, so in Switzerland by Le Corbusier, they don't seem to be the houses that finally they became famous for. They are very different. They are very traditional. They've got pitched roofs in them. Okay, so I'll compare. I'm putting three houses together. This one is the Roby house by Frank Lloyd Wright, which of course is a very evolved house and conceptually a very powerful house. But a few points can be derived at this juncture from these three houses by these masters. One is, all three have to a certain extent free flowing plans. They have homogeneity in color. There is simplicity in decoration. They are connected with past architecture, and a personal style is taking time to evolve. What I mean is that though the change is coming, but there is still scope of major shift that will happen in their works. Let's come to, for example, the first type of house of Mies we look at is called the brick country houses, very carefully proportioned. The size and location of doors and windows and all exterior and interior dimensions were all governed by one ordering device, the dimension of the individual brick. So if you very carefully look at the way the lintel has been placed, the way everything has been laid out, it is according to the size of the brick and completely in coordination with the brick courses. So because of that, the placement of the window, the size of the window, the way it has been embedded into the wall, all of it becomes one continuous harmonious link with one another, because there is an ordering device, that is the brick. And then when we come to a glass and steel building like the Barcelona Pavilion, the entire building is on a lifted platform. That is a plane which is an assembly point of many materials and structures. So in the Barcelona Pavilion, as you climb these steps and come on this platform, the platform itself has got two pools of water, one here and one here, and it's got two covered spaces, one here and one here. There is use of plate glass, RCC and later marble. There is a transparency with these long window strips and hovering floor slabs. Later on, the same idea would be expanded and used in high-tech architecture, the idea of transparency. Coming back to the brick houses, he designed the Wolf house in 1926. It had very sharp planes in brick versus the sharp white planes being used in the international style. So around the same time, Villa Savoy was built by Le Corbusier. That was in white planar geometry. So Mies van der Rohe began doing nearly the same thing but in brick. But there were many fundamental differences. He designed a set of two houses for two MDs of a mill in the international style with flat roofs, large windows and open plans to express their function and their simplicity, called the Esters and Lange House in Germany in 1928. Now, it had clear minimalism in it with very clean geometry, very simple transparent material, brick on the facade, material honesty, unornamented surfaces, and there is no unnecessary detail. So, now at this juncture, if again I would just digress and compare the houses of the masters once again, what have we come to? If we take the Esters and Lange house, this picture and this picture, with the kind of interior space it is, compare it with Falling Water, Villa Savoy and the Gropius house, one each by these four masters. So I would say if we take modernism as the parent movement, then we see the subsets. Offshoot on one side is organic architecture, because organic architecture, though part of the modernism concept, is somewhat on one side of it. It is tangential because it talks of other things also. Because it talks about our close attachment or affinity with nature. But the three subsets are very clear. So organic is Frank Lloyd Wright, and then the three subsets are the international style, Le Corbusier, Villa Savoy, minimalism, Esters and Lange House, Mies van der Rohe, and Gropius brought in functionalism through the Bauhaus. Now the brick country houses in 1923 had a free flowing pinwheel plan. You know what a pinwheel is? You know, you must have seen it on a stick. There is this, children play with this toy. I'll give you a picture of that, and it moves on that center point. It revolves around it. So this whole house kind of revolves around the center point. Plan is almost pure abstraction, this plan of the brick country house, just like the abstract D-style drawing of the D-style movement. So Mies van der Rohe at this time was also influenced by D-style architecture, or rather the D-style movement. This house that was never built, was not cut into little boxes, but the walls have been stretched into the landscape like this, as you can see in the plan also. It's a concept similar to Wright, because Wright also tries to draw your eyes with various planes, various cantilevers towards the horizon like this. But only here it's simpler, it's just simple walls. Now these extended walls help us to visually integrate the inside and the outside. And the second thing they do is, when you go inside the house, the walls end up creating zones or spaces, not boxes. They are able to provide free flowing spaces inside. Mies at this point was not able to work out the roof of such a plan properly, which he finally worked out in the form of the floating roof of the Barcelona Pavilion, which we will look at when we come to Barcelona Pavilion again. So these are some of the pictures of the brick country house in 1923, never built, but the idea was there. This is what I was talking about, the pinwheel. This house seems to rotate around this pinwheel. You know, this kind of rotates around it like this. And so also the houses of Frank Lloyd Wright, because in his houses the fireplace was the sacred space at the center of the house, and the Ward Villett's house also seems to revolve around it or rotate around it like a pinwheel. And when it comes to extending our eyes towards the horizon, as it happens in the brick country house with these extended walls, how does Frank Lloyd Wright do it? Let's take the example again of the Ward Villett's house. He does it like this. I'll show you again. These are these various pitched roof, pyramidal roofs on his house, and all of them, and there are many horizontal lines in the brickwork or in the way the parapet has been aligned, the roofs have been aligned. So if I take these in form of lines, this is what happens. He compels you by multiple horizontal lines and stretches your eye towards the horizon, so that he is able to scale down the building. Now in modernism we have free flowing plans, again come back to the Esters and Lange house, the Villa Savoy, the Gropius house and the Rohe house. Another project which Mies van der Rohe did as a planner was the Weissenhof Estate in Stuttgart, and it was a part of the Workbund exhibition 1927. What really happened in this project? You see, they collected all the international style architects under one roof, or one single design problem, one area where each of them were supposed to design one building or one house. So Mies designed one building, Gropius did it, Jean-Pierre Jeanneret, Le Corbusier did it, Aude, many architects, Hans Scharoun did it. They all provided one design and it was executed in this entire project. So when you look at the entire project, this is a picture of the project. When you look at the entire project, it seems to be, it's very difficult for you to ascertain as a layperson, for example, or even as an undergrad architecture student who doesn't know individual architects' works very closely, you will find it very difficult to know which architect did with what. Because all of it is in white planar geometry, all of it has these similar kind of windows, unornamented facades, no external detailing. They all look the same. This is the aerial view of the Weissenhof Siedlung, of the Weissenhof Estate. And here I am trying to show you one thing that puzzled me always, and I showed you that in an earlier slide also, how all of a sudden this white planar geometry came in modernism. And I suddenly realized one day they probably were inspired by the Mediterranean architecture that was close by on the shores of Greece and Spain, etc. And these kind of Mediterranean white plain buildings, white boxes that you find, inspired them. And not only that, if you look at the layout of the Weissenhof Estate and compare it with the layout of this vernacular Mediterranean development, there is a similarity in the two of them. These are also white boxes, of course more polished, more modern, more technically superior, but based on the similar idea of a white plane geometry or white boxes. This particular building is the one designed by Le Corbusier and his cousin. So some of the buildings, so Mies van der Rohe did the entire planning and then designed one specific housing, which was this block. This is by Corbusier and Jean-Pierre Jeanneret, this is by Hans Scharoun, this is by J.G. Piau. Like I said, very difficult for us to ascertain exactly who did what. It was all white planar geometry of the international style. But there was also an anti-reaction to this project by the Nazis. And why so? Let's go back. This project was in 1927. 1933, the Nazis came to power. And the Nazis had a vision of having a 1000-year reign. They wanted to have classical architecture. They had their own architect. His name was Albert Speer. I talked about him when I was talking about Italian Louis Bewley and his architecture of megalomaniacal form, and there I had mentioned about him. So this kind of project was completely rejected, and they even created this kind of an image. No, they did not have computers, they could not animate pictures, they just created a picture with Bedouins in it, and they said that this kind of a project is fit for the Bedouins, the nomads of Africa. So they were belittling the contribution of the international style architects. This is one of the reasons why several of these architects, when the Nazis came to power, had to leave Germany. Bauhaus was shut down, we will come back to that story again, but Mies van der Rohe and Walter Gropius escaped from Germany, they landed in America, and that helped us to have these amazing buildings that changed the face of modern architecture. So I will end here and I will continue with the next presentation on Mies van der Rohe. Thank you.